Oh God, damn! It's getting colder and colder. And to us, I'd love to say that it's going to start getting warmer, but I live in the UK and it doesn't start to snow here until January, February. Anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. We made it to the end of 2025. What a year it's been. What a Christmas we've had. It's been absolutely joyous. So I figured, why not wrap up the year with a movie that is very special to me and my family, but also if you've seen this movie, if you know of this movie that I'm going to talk about today, it's about new beginnings, new starts, and then going forth into the new year and seeing whatever happens that year. So today I'm going to be looking at Bridget Jones' Diary from 2001. But before we get into all of that and more for the final time of 2025, say it with me, housekeeping! Oh, that was absolutely beautiful, guys. I heard you all the way from here, even though I'm not recording this at the end of the year. I can still hear you from the future. It's brilliant. You did fantastic. Anyway, so make sure that you follow me on Twitter at howdybeans_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget as well, if you listen to this on Spotify, to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star rating. Also, you can add me on TikTok now. Just type in the Howdy Beans podcast and you'll find me there. So that is all done. As I said, today we're going to look into Bridget Jones's Diary. And again, like I said, the reason why I chose this movie today is because I have a great love of Bridget Jones's Diary. I have a great love of the character and of the movie. It's one of my mom's favorite films. Like, it's on all the time at Christmas. It is a fantastic movie. And like I said, as I was thinking about topics to do for the end of the year, I was thinking, well, what is a film or a topic that really reflects the whole idea of going into the new year and trying to be a better person, trying to change things? Do you want to lose weight? Again, we all have those sort of end of year like revelations or resolutions, whatever they're called, where it's like, oh, next year I want to lose a lot of weight, or I want to learn to drive next year, or I want to get a girlfriend next year, or I want to buy a house, or I want to have kids. We all have these like hopes and dreams and aspirations of things that we go into the next year with. And I thought, well, why better than Bridget Jones's Diary? Because the whole epitome of that movie is the fact of Bridget, her life. I think she's 32 in the movie. She's hungover on New Year's Eve, and she's like, okay, that's it. Next year is going to be my year. And then she starts writing a diary. And, as, the movie goes on, she meets new people and she gets relationships, the ups and the downs of life. And, I just thought that's the best movie to really talk about new beginnings and the new year. And also as well, it's a brilliant film as well that I greatly love and appreciate. And also, I've read the book to Bridget Jones' Diary. I read it, have to have been about 3-4 years ago now. Funny enough, actually, a bit of a side note, I wasn't too keen on the book. And it's not because the book's bad at all. No, the book is actually really, really well written. It is actually written like a diary. To be honest, when you read it, it's like entry 1, blah, blah, and then entry 2. So it's really well written. I think the reason why I didn't grasp with me is the fact of I'd watched the movie so many times. Is this that fact of the book and the movie are very close in terms of accuracy, in terms of faithfulness. So when you read the book, and if you've watched the film before, you're like, oh, okay, there's not really many new things. So it's not the book's fault that I didn't like it, which is more just the fact of because I realised how close the book and the film are, I'd much rather watch the movie than read the book. And if, like I say, if the book had a few more newer moments in it, newer scenes that weren't in the film, then I probably would have, enjoyed it. But either way, the book is still good, and I still recommend people to read Bridget Jones's Diary. It's still a book that I recommend people to go out and to read if they haven't, because it is a very, it's modern sort of telling of a very sort of Agatha Christie, sort of Jane Austen sort of book, really, and it is fantastic, and I always recommend people to check it out. Anyway, so that is why I chose it. Like I said, and my memories on the movie, like I said, it's always at Christmas. It's one of my mom's favourite films. That I figured, why not look into this movie? So, on to the actual sort of synopsis of the film. So, I've got a Blu-ray of the film, because of course I do. I've got a Blu-ray of all the first 3 movies, even though I don't quite like the third movie. I've got Blu-rays of the first 3 movies. So on the back, it goes as follows. And I'm going to read this as my best Bridget Jones impression. So, the hit film from Helen Fielding's classic novel, on New Year's Eve day, hungover and still single, Bridget Jones, a 30-something London girl, decides to get a grip on her life and start a diary. Resolution number 1, obviously, will lose £20. Number 2, will find a nice, sensible boyfriend and not continue to form romantic attachments to alcoholics, workaholics, peeping toms, megalomaniacs, emotional fuckwits, or perverts. But it's not that easy for Bridget. Choosing between bona fide sex god with big card Daniel Cleaver and aloof-looking but thoughtful, sensitive man Mark Darcy. And that is a synopsis for the back of the book. They've got special features as well with the Blu-ray, which I will be checking out as well. Because when I was looking at the production of this movie, there's actually a not online about the production of it, surprisingly, how big this movie is and how big the franchise is. There's actually not a lot on the production about it. So you got director's commentary, obviously, behind the scenes, featurette, and then there's 2 music videos. Pardon me, sorry. There's 2 music videos. There's Shelby Lynn, Killing Kind music video, and Gabrielle's Outreach music video, which I love Gabrielle's Outreach. It's a brilliant song. Basically, it's my childhood, that song is. And then deleted scenes. So that is the back of the box synopsis. As for the movie's cast, so we have the absolutely gorgeous Renee Zellweger. I had a huge crush on her when I was young. I think that's one of the reasons why I love Bridget Jones so much, is because as a young being, I just had such a big crush on Bridget. And Renee Zellweger, and whenever movie she was in, I was just like, I've got to watch that. Like she did a really good film. So another movie that my mum loves, that another film that I need to look into that nobody talks about, is Beatrix Potter. She basically did the movie and she played Beatrix Potter, which, if you don't know, she does Peter Rabbit and stuff like that. It's a wonderful movie, very magical. It's a film. It's got not Jude Law. Who's it? I'm going to lose my Star Wars card now because I forgot his name. Ewan McGregor, that's it. Ewan McGregor's in it. It's a wonderfully magical, sweet film that she was in, I think, a couple of years after Bridget Jones. But she plays Beatrix Potter really, really well. But yeah, Renee Zellweger as Bridget Jones, inspiring. Actually, to be honest, and I'll talk about it in the production, a lot of backlash because she was American. But to be honest, she does the British accent so well that I didn't know that she was American. I generally thought that she was English for the longest time until I saw when I was older, I saw her do interviews and she was American. I was like, that doesn't seem right because I'm so used to you being Bridget, So it's strange. Anyway, then we had Gemma Jones as Bridget's mum, Celia Imrie as Una, I can't pronounce that last name, Alcumbri, James Faulkner as Uncle Jeffrey, the pervert, Jim Broadbent, who I love, Bridget's dad, Colin Firth as Mark Darcy, Chairman May as Miss Darcy, Hugh Grant as Daniel Cleaver. Love Hugh Grant. I watched him recently in Heretic for Halloween. Oh, he was fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant. Like I now want to see him do more horror movies because he's just on another level. And if you haven't seen Heretic, I highly recommend it. Paul Brookie as Mr. Fitzbert, Felicity Montag as Petunia, Shirley Henderson as Jude, Sally Phillips as Shazza. Come the fuck on, Bridget. James Callis as Tom, Charlie Kane as Handsome Stranger, Garth Marks as Simon in Marketing, John Clegg as the Elderly Man, Salman Rushdie as Salman Rushdie, and Elizabeth Dance as Natasha. So that is your cast. As for the production, as I said, there's not actually a lot to say about the production. Like, Working Title Films acquired the film rights of the novel in 1997 before it became a bestseller. Yeah, during the 90s, and again, I'd say this is probably around the time of Harry Potter as well, a lot of movie studios were looking at books to get sort of franchise titles, like books that they thought, like, this is going to be big. We want to get the rights to this as soon as possible. And then, as we saw through the 2000s, it was a lot of book to movie adaptations because of the success of Harry Potter and things like that. And again, Bridget Jones' Diary, which came out around about the same time as Harry Potter as well. So it's one of those where, you can see the gradual climb, as they say. As for casting, it goes as follows. So actresses who were considered for the role of Bridget Jones were Helena Bonham Carter, who I absolutely adore. Biggest crush on Helen. I absolutely love that woman. She could do no wrong, in my opinion. Every role is fantastic that she's in. But yeah, I would have loved to have seen Helen Bottom Carter, Helen Bottom Farter, as we used to say when we were younger, in the role. Kate Blanchett would have been brilliant as well. Emma Watson would have been brilliant. Rachel Weisz, she would have been great, but she was considered too beautiful for the role. Because obviously the thing is with Bridget, she's meant to be like the average woman. She's meant to be like your average looking woman, like beautiful, yes, but like not like she's like a 6 or like a 5 or a 6, a very average looking woman. When people walk past her, nothing happens. Nobody gets upset. Nobody gets offended. People go on with their lives. That is a Jim Jefferies joke, by the way. But yeah, like a very average looking woman. And again, Rachel Weisz is gorgeous. This was 2001. This was like Mummy territory. Everybody fell in love with her in The Mummy. We all know how gorgeous she was in that film and how gorgeous she still is now. So I get it, but still, that's not very. It's kind of a compliment, but also kind of fact of that's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Like, you're too beautiful for this role. Go away. It's a bit strange, but anyway, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. And Cameron Diaz, as well as Toni Collette. Anne Cameron Diaz, sorry, she was also considered for the role. Toni Collette declined the role because she was on Broadway starring in The Wild Party at the time. Kate Winslet was also considered, but at 24, the producers decided she was too young. Zellweger's casting in late May 2000 concluded a 2-year search. Producer Eric Fellner explained that she brings enormous character and conviction to the part. Director Sharon Maguire said of Zellweger, "I saw in Renee a gift few people have, that she was able to straddle comedy and emotion." End of quote. Zellweger worked on her accent with Barbara Berkeley, who had helped Gwyneth Paltrow for Shakespeare in Love. She also gained 20 pounds, which is about 9 kilograms for any Americans out there, for the part. To prepare for the role, Zellweger worked at the producer's request at London book publisher Picador as a trainee in the publicity department before the film was released, and a considerable amount of controversy surrounded the casting of the American Zellweger as what some saw as a quintessentially British heroine. However, her performance, including her southern eastern English accent, is widely considered to be of a high standard. And I completely agree. Like I said, it fooled me for years. I generally thought she was English for years. So it's very convincing. It's a very high standard. In July 2000, Colin Firth and Hugh Grant were cast as the male leads. The director of the film, Maguire, one of Fielding's friends, was reportedly the base for the character Shazza, English slang for Sharon. As mentioned in the behind-the-scenes commentary on the DVD, in the film, Shazza is played by Sally Phillips, who, if you don't know who Sally Phillips is, she is a star. She's hilarious, she's funny, she's incredibly talented. She's wonderful. She really is. And like, if you've seen Taskmaster, she's on Taskmaster, and she's just so good on that show. So good on Taskmaster. I always recommend people to watch Taskmaster. Anyway, you can just tell I'm really excited because I keep going on tandems. I try to keep myself on track, but I just can't because I love this movie. I'm just happy. And it's been a fantastic year. So, it is what it is. Anyway, as for filming, so principal photography began on the 1st of August 2000 and concluded on the 5th of November 2000. The crew spent 6 weeks shooting in and around London. Locations used include Shad Thames, where Bridget and Daniel have their first date, the Royal Courts of Justice, St Pancras Railway Station, and Tower Bridge. Scenes were filmed at Stoke Park in Buckinghamshire, where Bridget and Daniel ventured for their mini break. Rotham Park in Herefordshire served as Darcy's home. Stansted Airport doubled as JFK Airport in New York City, while Sion House in Bradford featured as the venue for the anniversary party. The crew filmed for 4 days at Snow Hill in Gloucestershire, which featured as the home of Bridget Jones's family. After 6 weeks of shooting on location, the crew moved to Shepton Studios in Surrey. So that is all I've got for the production. As I said, I will watch the special features on the back of the on the Blu-ray, specifically the behind-the-scenes featurette, just to kind of get a bit of a feel of it. Because, so believe it or not, how big this movie is and how sort of widely acclaimed it is, and how much money it made, and how loved it is by reviewers and stuff like that. There's not actually a lot in terms of production notes. It was kind of hard to scrape things together. So I'm actually surprised I managed to get as much as I did, but did quite well at the box office. One thing I will mention before we move on to the actual review, Bridget Jones' Diary grossed about $6.5 million in the United States and Canada, and about $210.5 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $282 million. Against a production budget of only $25 million. So it definitely made its budget back and more. And it goes to show, actually, how cheap movies were to make back in those days. Like, movies now, like, they cost like $70 to $100 million to make. Whereas, like, back in the day, most movies were like 10 to 20, 15 at the best. And that's why I think so many movies succeeded back in the day, was because they had such low budgets that even if it was a bad film, because the bar was so low in terms of having to reach, that even a bad movie could be successful, and that just proves that, we'll do a sequel and we'll improve it for the sequel. And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't, but it just goes to show. Anyway, the film made $10.7 million in its opening weekend, finishing third, dropping just 5.7% in its second weekend. The film made $10.2 million and finished first the following weekend. So it did quite well at the box office, and obviously we all know how big it's gone on. It went on to make sequels, and like we got Bridget Jones' Baby, and we got the quite recent one, which I can't remember the name of, which I actually really enjoyed the fourth film. I prefer it over the third film, but we'll get there when we get there. But yeah, so that's what I've got to say really about the production of Bridget Jones. I'm going to go off now and watch this wonderful movie. I'm most likely going to watch it with my mom because she loves this film. More than likely we'll end up watching one, and then she'll be like, "Oh, can we put the second one on?" And I was like, "Okay." And then she'll be, "Oh, can we put the third one?" Because she really loves about a baby, Bridget Jones' Baby. She really loves that one. So more than likely I'll end up watching all of the films in one day. So I'll be very Bridget Jones is out. But either way, I will ask if she wants to watch it. She'll most likely say yes, and when I come back, we'll talk about my first impressions, talk about the story, production, overall thoughts, and maybe end on a bit of trivia if I can find some. So until then, I'll see you all in a second. And welcome back, everybody. So before I actually get into this review, as life usually does, and as the universe does, it just throws things at you before you see it coming. I usually, as everybody knows, I pre-record the introductions, so that gives me enough time to not only edit those, but also do a bit more research, watch the movie, play the game, etc., etc. In doing so, and before I actually got around to watching the movie, it was reported yesterday on the 17th of November that there was a statue that was erected in London's Leicester Square to celebrate the sort of 20 plus years of the sort of literature character that is Bridget Jones. And Renee Zellweger was there, as well as the author of Bridget Jones. And I just wanted to talk about the article here because it's quite interesting. So Renee Zellweger has called a new statue of Bridget Jones adorable, adding, "I think she's much cuter than me." The actress was speaking to BBC News as a new statue celebrating the character she played for more than 20 years was unveiled in London's Leicester Square on Monday. Bridget Jones was created in 1996 by author Helen Fielding and was first adapted for the big screen in 2001. The fourth film came out early this year. Speaking at the unveiling, Fielding refused to rule out taking her story further, saying, "You should never say never." Zellweger added that everyone can relate to Bridget, who explained her huge appeal. It's her vulnerability, her humanness, she said. We recognise ourselves in her. We recognise ourselves in her struggles. It makes it okay for the rest of us to authentically be who we are. Imperfect. The character Bridget Jones went straight to many women's hearts who took comfort in her trials and tribulations. From her embarrassing work mishaps to her infamous granny pants, Bridget Jones spoke to a generation who saw themselves in her and has recently won over a new generation of younger fans. The fourth film in the franchise, Bridget Jones is Mad Over the Boy, was released in February and sees Bridget Jones living as a single mother and tackling modern dating. There's more to it as well, but I won't get into it. I just wanted to highlight it though, like how strange the universe is, how I was really excited to talk about Bridget Jones, because I feel like Bridget Jones, and again, I'll get onto it in the review, and I spoke about it a bit in the introduction. What I love about Bridget Jones, not just the movie, but as a character overall, I do agree what Zellweger said, is the fact of it is a character that speaks to all, specifically women, but it's a character that speaks to all of us. And as this review is coming out at the end of the year, as the final sort of review that I do as we lead in to the new year, as we start doing our own resolutions and all that kind of stuff, I thought that she was a brilliant character because she really shows the idea of you can be who you want to be. You can be imperfect, because there's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as the ideal person. This whole idea that, society has told us that we have to be beautiful, we have to be gorgeous, we have to dress a certain way, we have to look a certain way, we have to act a certain way, we have to be a certain way. It's all flim flam hoo ha, really, if you ask me. Because if you meet those people, they're miserable. They put on a brave face, but they're miserable. The true happy people in life are the people that are just being themselves, dressing the way they want to dress, being the way they want to be. They're the happiest people in the world because they're being ineffectively imperfect. They're being themselves, their true selves, and that's wonderful. And so I wanted to talk about this briefly at the beginning, because I think it's lovely how they've decided to celebrate the character by giving her a statue, so she's always immemorial, so that if you ever go to Leicester Square, which I have been once, if you ever go to Leicester Square, you can see not just Bridget Jones, but I think Batman's there. I think Harry Potter's there as well. Peter Pan might be there. There's other statues as well of other sort of really sort of culturally impactful characters that have impacted society. And definitely worth going. And if you find yourself going there now or 2026, you'll find Bridget Jones and you can take a picture with her and be remembered for not only the brilliant character, but also the brilliant performance that Renee Zellweger did for the character. And of course, I'm actually looking at a picture of the statue now. It's a very canny a resemblance of Renee Zellweger. So she'll always be remembered of all of her wonderful roles. She'll always be remembered for Bridget Jones. So I just wanted to mention that right off the bat. As for the actual review itself, so first impressions, going straight into it. I love this movie, I really do, which is pretty evident, not just for the beginning, but also for that little stint I just did there. But it's interesting watching this movie as a reviewer because, like, when you watch a movie for yourself, you watch it for what it is, and you take it for what it is, and you either love it or hate it, right? What I found by doing reviews is that you watch something a little differently. You notice things differently, and you kind of have it. You can't help but look at it with new eyes of the generation that you're currently in. So I'm watching this movie through the eyes of someone in 2025, and this came out in 2001, and seeing how cultures change, how people change. Like, it's funny. I don't smoke. And to be honest, most people nowadays don't smoke. And it's quite funny. I was actually talking to a colleague at work, and they were telling me how they feel sort of villainized, how they feel sort of like a bad person, that people are judging them because they smoke, because most people don't smoke anymore. But back during like the early 2000s, everybody smoked. It was a common thing. You would see smoking in restaurants. You'd see smoking in public places. You go to like parties indoors, and people would be openly smoking indoors, and it was just a social normal thing. And then to watch this movie and to see that and be like, oh no, we don't do that no more. Like, people go outside and smoke, and even vaping. Like, people go outside and vape and stuff like that. And again, you see it in the other Bridget Jones movies. If you watch like 2, 3, 4, how society changes and how Bridget changes, and how Bridget tries to sort of get used to that society, especially in the third and fourth movie, more so. But it's little things like that I noticed. But the reason why I bring it up is the fact of what I love about watching this movie is that I watched it with my mum, and she said something that I was thinking, and she said something that a lot of people said to me, and I love that she said it, because I completely at that point realized for myself what everybody was saying. It was basically during the scene where Renee Zellweger, she's dressed up as a bunny, and she's going to a party because it's meant to be vicars and strippers. And she goes there as a bunny. She looks absolutely glorious, absolutely stunning, very sexy, very beautiful. And And she goes in and she gets this party, and like no one's told her that it's changed. So they're all wearing normal dress, and she's dressed up as the Playboy Bunny. She was very embarrassed. And again, it's one of them sort of like cringy sort of moments of Bridget Jones's life of the film. And as we're watching it, my mum's out of nowhere. She's just gone, "No way is she fat. She's not. What? I can't believe people thought. I can't believe people ever thought that she was fat." And I just looked over to my mum. I was like, "I'm really glad you said that because I was thinking the same thing." And it's strange because you look at Bridget Jones in this movie, you look at Bridget Jones in all the movies, she's not fat. I wouldn't class her as fat, and society now, which I'm glad for, has changed to a point of where society now wouldn't look at her that she was fat. You look at her that she's average, she's a normal size, she's healthy. Is probably the best word to use. Now, as a man, I can't comment on women's weight and sort of women's insecurities, but as a human, as somebody myself who has struggles with their weight and stuff like that, I can relate. I can look at that and say, look, if she's considered fat or was considered fat back in the early 2000s, in the 90s, then I must be overweight. You know what I mean? Because I'm as skinny as they come. And it's one of those where I was watching, I was like, I can't believe a whole society just was convinced that she was overweight because she isn't. And I don't want to sort of drag too much onto it, but it's just one of those where I was watching. It's like she isn't. She's curvy, but she's gorgeous and she's healthy. She's lovely. She's I lack of better words, my sort of perfect woman. Really, I think like men would go to war over a woman like her. I said this when in my Troy review in the sort of near the sort of end of the summer, was that men used to go to war for women that were curvy, that were big, that they used to carve statues of I don't want to use the F word, but big women, curvy, voluptuous goddesses, because they are goddesses. Big women are gorgeous and goddesses, and don't let anybody ever tell you differently if you agree with me, or if you are one of those sort of women, you are gorgeous and sexy, right? And like I said, they used to go to war for it. So why is it society had changed where we got to like the sort of 20th century and it was completely seen as wrong? You look at Marilyn Monroe, sort of societally agreed, the whole sort of human race agreed at the time, and still now, that she was gorgeous, but she wasn't skinny. She was a curvy woman. So what changed? What happened where we got to the point where we started to sort of being horrible to these women that happened to be just a little bit bigger boned? You know what I mean? Like it's so stupid. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I just do apologize. I had that in me, apparently. I had to lay it out. But it's one of those where you watch and you're thinking, oh God, yeah, I'm glad that society has changed, that we can watch movies like this and notice of like, yeah, we don't smoke indoors anymore. That's changed. Or, we don't sort of villainize women for just being a little bit curvy anymore. Like it's okay to be a little bit curvy and that sort of thing, and be healthy. And I also love watching it because it was like there's nobody on their phones. It was a very human sort of story, sort of things. Like there were phones, but like they weren't smartphones. They were just like old Nokias and stuff like that. Like it was a tool, really. Like the best thing you could do was play Snake, but even then, that was it, really. But I do really, really love and enjoy this movie, despite all that. I love watching this film because it's so nostalgic for me. The music, which I'll talk into more detail, is nostalgic. Having it's sort of Outreach playing, these all of the songs play, and the nostalgia as well of like seeing how life was back in like the early 2000s, like the generation that I grew up in. It's a very nostalgic movie, and again, it starts at Christmas, well, New Year's, Christmas. As you go through the year with Bridget, as she sort of meets Daniel Cleaver and find out how much of a sort of sleazy bloke he is, really. But I love him as well. And she meets Mark Darcy, and she has a different idea and opinion of Mark Darcy and how she falls in love with him. She realizes who Daniel is really as a person, as a character, and she falls in love with Darcy. It is very much like Agatha Christie, sort of Jane Austen, sort of Pride and Prejudice, that sort of thing, really, but like for a modern audience, and I love it, which is kind of ironic because I think Mark Darcy, his character, he played in Pride and Prejudice. I think he actually played Darcy in that. I think he did. I'm almost sure he did. I'm about 90% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm 90% sure he was. I haven't seen the movie, but I've just have this image of him coming out of a lake drenched in a white sort of, not leotard, sort of old frilly sort of shirt. I think that's him anyway. Either way, I just find it sort of very funny. Sort of, it's like a modern telling, and I'm sure he played the original sort of character. Anyway, so I love that. Going with Bridget through her life and how she sort of makes mistakes, and she shows that she's not perfect and nobody's perfect, and the sort of the imperfections of being a human. How like you're going to fall in love, and you're going to get heartbroken, and you're going to mess up at work. We've all made mistakes at work, we're going to make friends, we're going to lose friends, but it's okay because we just keep going, we keep moving forwards. As Bridget shows, she leaves one job, goes to a better one, and she ends up staying with Sit Up Britain for her whole life, really. But she rises up through the movies, and she becomes a full-on sort of executive near to like the final movie. But she finds somewhere that she wants to be, somewhere where she's comfortable, where she's happy. And yeah, it's a really empowering movie, not just for women, but also for everybody, really. It's one of them films of like, look, it's okay to be human. Bridget Jones is a story about a woman in a sort of early 30s who's getting judged by people being like, when you're going to have kids, when you're going to get married, when you're going to get a boyfriend, don't you want to live on your own forever? And saying, no, stuff that. I want to be wild and free. Yes, I want to meet somebody, but I want to do what I want to do. I want to be happy. I want to have, go out for drinks with my mates and have a laugh and stuff like that. And then me being 27, I'm still a young bean. Like I'm close. I'm closer to 30 than I am 20. I know that. And I know when I get to 30, there'll be that thing of like, Luke, if I'm not married by then, people are like, well, Luke, why are you not married? Why have you got kids yet? Why are you single? Because I get it now at 27. At 27, I get those questions off people. So I know when I get into my 30s, I'm going to get more of them. And I'm just going to ignore them, be like, look, I'm going at my speed and I'm happy, and I'll get there when I get there, if I ever get there. You know what I mean? And it just shows how society's changed, where people still ask those sort of questions. People still expect those things off women. You still hear those things after people get to a certain age of like, why is she single? Why is she not with anybody? So it still happens now. So, society's changed, but, the idea of the way the women should be, and the way where women should be, should I say, as well, at a certain age and certain time period in their life and that sort of thing, the expectancy, quote unquote, and all this stupid mumbo jumbo, really. Like, the way I see it, live your life the way you want to lead it. Go as fast or as slow as you want to go. It doesn't matter, because it's your life. I think that's what we forget. We listen so much to society and to people. We forget to listen to ourselves, and we get to sit there and go, oh, actually, I don't have to do that now. Because there's, like, with me, like I said, I'm 27, but going up through like my sort of late teens, coming into my beginning of my 20s, going through college, going for uni, looking on Facebook, looking on Instagram, seeing people that I went to school with have kids, get married, get divorced, get married again, get into relationships, break up relationships, go on holiday, go on partners' holidays, go on holiday with all their mates from school that they're still friends with, and all this kind of stuff. And don't be right, there have been moments where I've sat there and gone, well, why am I not doing that? And then I sit there and I go, well, because I don't want to do that yet. I haven't met anybody to do that yet. I'm going at my speed, and I'm happy for that. So it's a normal thing, but I feel like sometimes we've got to sit down and listen to ourselves and go, no, slow it down. I'm going at a speed I'm happy with. I'm going at a speed that I'm comfortable with, and that's okay. And I love that. And watching this movie now, watching Bridget Jones, sort of reinforces that. Be like, look, just go at a speed that you're happy with. Things will come. Things will happen. You've just live. Just go about life, and then when the time comes, you'll be at work, and then one day you'll go on a work meeting and you'll meet somebody, or you go to Comic-Con and you meet somebody, or you decide to take up a new hobby and you meet somebody, or anything like that. So just live. Don't stay at home. Leave the house. Live. That's probably the best advice I could give. But I'm still on first impressions, which is funny enough. I haven't really got into the story yet. But yeah, the movie is very powerful to me, and it does mean a lot to me. And it means a lot to a lot of people, to be honest. And that's one thing I found when I was telling people about this movie, how a lot of people said that they really love it and enjoy it. They don't so much like the sequels, which we'll get on to and talking about sort of people's feelings near to the end. But this movie does mean a lot to people. It does mean a lot to people socially, because it just showed everybody, and not just the movie, but also the book, showed a lot of people, specifically women again, that you could just live your life and it's okay. Go at your speed. It was a character that women could relate to, which we have a lot, but we don't have enough of. Especially back in the 90s, especially in the 2000s, we didn't have enough of then. So I'm glad that Bridget Jones, the character, is getting a statue, so she'll be remembered forever, and people will always be able to be inspired by her and be inspired by Renee Zellweger's portrayal of her and the movies. I absolutely love that. I do. As for sort of the story, so again, the story follows Bridget Jones. I think she's 32 or 33. She's still a young being. She's still young, really. And she basically realizes that she basically makes a fool of herself in front of Mark Darcy in her parents' sort of like New Year's Eve turkey curry sort of evening, and she goes, "That's it." She gets home. She gets a diary, and she's like, "That's it. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to lose weight," which again, she doesn't need to lose weight, but she says, "I'm going to lose weight. I'm not going to waste my life on stupid men. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to flourish." And then she meets Daniel Cleaver, who is basically everything that she basically said that she wasn't going to do, who is basically a sleazebag, but he comes off as very charming and handsome because, again, Hugh Grant is a very charming, handsome, gorgeous man, to be honest. And she meets him, and he's lovely at first. They're flirting and all this kind of stuff, and then sort of flirting leads to sex. And she thinks a bit of a relationship with him, and she basically realizes that he's not who she thought he was going to be, because he's all just a load of bull, really. He's a load of bullshit. He uses the same lines with every woman. He uses the same act, the same shtick to get into women's knickers, really. And he cheats on her, and she basically goes, "That's it, I've had it with you." But then she meets Mark a few times in this movie, but she re-meets Mark Darcy. And then at that point, she kind of realizes that he's not the man that she thought he was, and he's not the man that that Daniel told her he was, because obviously Daniel lied to her and told her that Daniel was the bad guy, was the villain, was the one that you want to stay away from. And she realizes that's not true, and she slowly starts to fall in love with Daniel. And I love not Daniel, Mark. I love Mark Darcy and Bridget's relationship. I love their chemistry, the way they are together, because it's funny watching this movie how many times that I have, and then watching it again for this review. And like I said, looking at it differently and noticing those moments when Mark first meets Bridget, he does have that kind of sort of snobbish, stuck up sort ofness of him, where like she's trying her best to kind of be bumbly, be awkward, but she's just trying to be herself. And he completely brushes her off, and very meanly to us. And admittedly, fair play to Mark. Near to sort of the middle to the end of the movie, he does admit, and he goes, "Look, I realise I was quite harsh and mean to you. I'm very sorry. I didn't mean it." And he does apologise for it. So, like, fair play to him. But you notice throughout the film, because he keeps popping up, especially when she's with Daniel and stuff like that, where Daniel's hugging her, they're kissing, she's having a laugh and joke, and you can see in Mark's face where he's looking and he's like, "I wish that was me." Because like there's a moment where they're on a lake, and Bridget is in one boat, Daniel is in another, and Daniel is doing quotations from Keats and stuff like that, and he falls in, and they're having a laugh, having a joke, and it's all fun and games. And then you've got, I think Natalie is the girl that's with Mark at the time, or Natasha, can't remember her name. She goes, "Oh, absolutely childish." And you have that moment where Mark is looking, he's watching this, and you can see it in his eyes. God, he wishes that was him. And when she says very childish, he kind of snaps out and goes, "Oh yes, absolutely sort of childish." But you can see he's trying to look away, but he can't. He's watching, and it's kind of funny because I was when I was watching that scene of like, I would want to be. That's who I would be. I don't take life seriously. I don't. And if I was in that situation with a partner, I'd be having a laugh and a joke. I'd be splashing the water. I'd rock the boat, tip it, and stuff like that. I'd be having fun because, again, you only live once. Have fun, this sort of thing. So some people would see it as childish, but I would see it as a fact of, if I'm lucky, I've only got 75 years. So I'm going to enjoy every single minute, every single breath of it that I can really. So if that means I'm going to have to get up and like sort of quote Keats and be an absolute fool and be an arse of myself, as long as it makes the love of my life happy and makes her laugh, that's all that matters to me at the end of the day, you know. So you can see where Mark he's looking at this and he's like, I wish that was me. And he slowly starts to come out of his shell, and he slowly gets a bit braver to the point where he comes to Bridget and he tells her, like, I love you. Well, he says, I like you, not love, because I like you exactly the way you are. And it's kind of like negging, really, because he goes like, oh, you know, you can be a bit of a fool sometimes. You can be a bit of this, you can be a bit of that, like all very negative things. You see Bridget's just kind of sitting there like, oh, okay, all right, slow down. You know, you're starting to dig deep now. It's starting to hurt. But then he goes, but that's okay. You know, I like you for who you are. That, you know, I don't want you to be anybody else but you. I wouldn't have you anywhere else. You know, and sort of Bridget realizes this because she then notices the fact of all the moments that they've had together, all those awkward moments, that she's made a fool of herself. Mark is trying his best to process them and to deal with them, but obviously Mark's Mark. He's very sort of like, he doesn't know how to he doesn't know how to express his emotions. So even though it might like seem to her at the time he's not interested, she starts to notice of like, oh, he's always been interested in me. It's yeah. Looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense now. And like she has like her birthday with him, and he comes in and he sort of saves the day and makes like blue soup, and it's really cute, really endearing, to be honest. And then you obviously get the bit with her with Mark and Daniel, they have their fight, and it like Raining Men comes on. It's raining men as they're fighting each other. And you got their one friend, I can't remember his name. He's like, it's a fight, a real fight. And it always makes me laugh. And yeah, I'm not going to quote the whole movie because there's a lot going on. The movie's about 2 hours long, so there's a lot going on in the film. But as you follow Bridget through the story and her ups and downs, you just realize it's, like I said, and I feel like I'm repeating myself, but you realize it's a very human story. It's a story of a woman, Bridget Jones, who's 32 or 30 something in the beginning of her 30s, who wants to have a better year. Last year was terrible. She wants to have a better year. She has resolutions. She wants to make changes, which we all do. Everybody does that every single year. I do it every year, and I've broke some, I've stuck to some, I've achieved some, and I've failed at others, which is normal in life. That, you know, we all do. Nobody's perfect, as I say, and it's just, she just goes through this year, and you follow her through the year of, you know, going through meeting Daniel, breaking up with Daniel, you know, getting things going with Mark and realizing that she likes Mark, then Mark's getting engaged, and Mark realizing he actually likes Bridget just the way she is, and getting advice of her friends, going to her friends for advice, because that's what we all do. We all go to our friends for advice. Going to her parents, but her parents are also struggling. Her parents are going through sort of divorce breakup sort of thing. So it's the fact of she's trying there to be there for her dad, trying to comfort her dad while her mum's off trying to live her life because she's not really getting a life or has a life with her partner currently, Bridget's dad. You know, so there's a lot going on. So it's not, so Bridget is the main character, yes, but there's a lot of other sort of stories going on, of other things going on in people's lives, because you never know what's going to go through a year. You know, there's no way that she could have predicted that she would meet Daniel and then he would break her heart. You know, there's no way she could have predicted that her parents would break up and she'd have to be there for her dad, and she would also get heartbreak as well. So it's just a very human story of a year of somebody's life, of the ups and downs, of the tribulations, of the positive and negatives, of losing your job but finding the job that fits you. It's a perfect movie. I love it. I really do. And it's so much nostalgia for me of like the early 2000s, of just, yeah, being young, being free, being wild, being a young being, really, being a child, just being allowed to be a child, not having any expectations on anything at all, just be happy, play with toys and live. And to be honest, at 27, I'm basically the same. The difference is I have a job, you know, but I still have my hobbies. I still have my toys, or figures as we call them now. Because when you get older, they're no longer toys, they're collectibles. Okay. Don't come at me, you know. But yeah, who's this? I haven't really grown up, to be honest. I'm still living that wild and free life. And I'm happy. And I'm living at my speed. I'm going at my speed, and life is good at the moment, really. And I really really enjoy it. And I enjoy doing the podcast. And obviously next year is going to be my 5th year anniversary, so it's going to be a year of celebrations and look backs and stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, this movie is wonderful. As I mentioned, like the music, it's so nostalgic, and just that feel of like early 2000s England that I remember. I remember the cars, remember the phones, remember the way people dressed and the things that were on TV and the TVs. Like the TVs weren't flat screens like paper; they had a big box on the back, and when you turned them on, they made a sort of noise. And if you was one of those sort of fat people, you had a TV that when you turned it on and made that noise, you couldn't touch the main screen because it's like a plasma. So if you touched it too much, you'd get like little tingly feeling on your hand, and then you would shock your sister, which I did, which was great because you'd go zzz, like that. I used to put my face up against it, and then I used to just like stroke my sister or my mum. It was hilarious. Or like if you press too hard on the TV, that part of the TV would go black, and then you unpressed it. It was great, right? You know, like kids nowadays would just never be able to understand the days before the internet and so like the pure joy of having a fan in the house and standing in front or behind the fan and go, "Hello, I am Luke Skywalker. Delete, I am a cyber." You know what I mean? Like just talking into it and sound like a robot. We all did it. And we was all happy. Times are easier. Times are simpler. Now times are just harder, confusing now, to be honest. But my overall thoughts is Bridget Jones, she is a character that will everlast, will outlive me, will outlive us all, but she will be forever be remembered and be known for being a source of empowerment for women, for me, for you, for adults, for people in their 30s, for people who want to live their life the way they want to live it, for people who make mistakes, for people who make the wrongs, people who find the love of their life, who don't find the love of their life. Like, I think this is why Bridget Jones, like, because I was thinking this years ago when they announced Bridget Jones 3. I was thinking, well, is it a bit late now? Do we need this movie anymore? But then you watch it and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I prefer the first two, but I can see that this is Bridget Jones and she's older and she's trying to fit in with the new generation that's up now. And I thought the same with the movie that came out this year, Bridget Jones's Baby, with like, oh, do we need this? And then I watched it and I was like, actually, yeah, we do. It works. So Bridget Jones is a character who I feel like we haven't seen the end of it. I feel like there would be a Bridget Jones's 4 when she's like in her 60s, and I would watch it because it'd be interesting to see how a Bridget in her 60s, how she lives now when her children are older, or how her life is with a new partner, whatever, and stuff like that. So I feel like the character is going to outlive us all, and is always going to be a beacon of empowerment for everybody, really. And this idea of going into a new year and just living life and not being upset or getting hung up on the idea of it not going to plan, really. Like you make plans and make sort of like, this year I'm going to do this. Don't get upset that you don't achieve them or you don't do them. Just be like, okay, I tried, but it didn't work. But there's always next year, or there's always tomorrow, or there's always next month, or there's always, in the next hour. There's always a chance to make the change, but you've always got to decide when to make that change. Only you can decide when the right time is for you. No one else can. So it's always up to you. And I feel that's a wonderful thing about life, really. But yeah, I love this film. I do. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to people. And again, I'm glad that I've decided this is the film that I'm going to talk about for the end of the year. Before we get to trivia, I do want to sort of talk about some things that people have said, which is not a lot, really. But when I put online that I was watching this movie, I put onto Twitter, and again, I haven't done this in a while, and I'll most likely do this again sometime next year, so keep an eye out. But whenever I'm talking about a movie, I'll always post onto my Twitter, I'm watching this film, what do you think? If you do want to shout out and you do want to be mentioned in the episode, then whenever you see those sort of posts, comment down below and I'll sort of shout you and I'll read your comment. So the first one is from the wonderful Chat Tsunami. He wrote, it's a classic for sure, but damn, were the sequels just odd. Also agree with Well, 'Tis Yourself, which I'll get onto her comment in a minute. The whole ha 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 she's fat joke when she wasn't was always weird back then. It was weird back then. Admittedly, how old was I in 2001? I was born in 98, so I was, hold on, 1, two. I was 3 years old. So again, I was too young for it, and obviously growing up and watching it, I didn't notice it. But I'm watching over and over as I've gotten older and as society has changed, and again watching this now for this review, I see it, I get it. I'm like, yeah, no, she isn't fat, and she never was. So I wonder if maybe that would have been a good thing to do research on. I don't know. Doesn't matter now, but it would be interesting to see if people back then saw the same thing. And maybe when I look at the second movie next year, I will look into research to see if people at the time had those feelings of like, why is everybody saying she's fat when she isn't? So that'll be so. Thank you, Chatsu. I would make note of that and look into that next year when I look into the sequel. But yeah, the whole ha 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 she's fat joke, it's not funny, and it's not true. And it's one of those where it's just like, I don't get it. I really don't. But again, that's just the way society was back then. But I just say, like, that's how it was. We've changed now. We're better now. And I'm glad that we've changed, Then, Tish Yourself podcast went, what an epic film, but through 2025 eyes, not so great. She was never fat. Again, I completely agree. She never was. And I'm glad it's not just me who's noticed it. I'm glad other people noticed it as well. And I'm glad other people commented about it because it's true. She never was. And she's gorgeous. And even now, like, look at Renee Wiggin now. She's gorgeous. She's a sexy, beautiful woman. And she was back then and she was now. And the character of Bridget is the same. So I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But, that's just the way society was back then. I'm glad that we've changed, but it is. Also, one thing that I mentioned as well in this review was that I asked people to give me their sort of New Year's resolutions. Only one person commented on their New Year's resolutions, which was Jaylan Salah. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. She wrote, I really hope I could be happier next year. Well, for you, Jaylan, I hope you are next year. I really do hope you are happier next year. Whatever's happened this year, I am sorry for, but I just hope that next year is better. Whatever it is that you need to do or need to happen to be happy, I hope it happens for you. Whatever you want, I hope you achieve it. Every single goal that is there for you, and you get happy. That's what I hope for you. But thank you for your comment. And then Ebony, she writes 4 out of 5, absolute classic. If only the sequels were just as good. I like the sequels. I do. I really like the second film. I do. But I know a lot of people don't like them. And I've never really understood why. To be honest, I know the third movie. Like, I'll admit, I watched the third movie, and my mum loves the third film. Bridget Jones's Baby. I know people love that film. I'm not too keen on it, but I like it. I like the second film. And I actually think, in my opinion, really the way I would watch these films, which I know you have to watch them in an order, but the way I would class it is you'd watch 1 and 2, and then watch 4. You can skip 3, watch 4. 4's really good. 4 actually made me cry at the end. To be honest, I was with my mum in tears, crying because it's a bit emotional. To be honest, but we'll get there when we talk about the 4th film. One thing I do want to talk about as well, just before we go into trivia, I want to talk about my sort of New Year's sort of revelations and resolutions, or I don't know, I always say it wrong. I know what I mean, and obviously, hopefully, you guys know what I mean. For me, next year, so I'm going to break it down. So, in terms of me personally, a lot like Jaylan, happiness. I always wish for happiness, even though it's not always like you can't always guarantee happiness. I always wish for happiness because I like the idea of being more happy than sad in the year, to be honest. And if I can achieve even that, I've succeeded. I also hope that things go well in terms of work. I hope things go well in terms of potentially finding a partner. And I also hope like I can pass my driving test and I'll be driving next year. I hope that I'd like to go to Italy next year. I'd like to travel around. I'd like to go see the Northern Lights next year. Little things like this, things that I wish for. But me personally, I just wish for happiness. I just wish to be happy. I just wish things go well, and that I stay me. I stay more positive. I see how healthy and things go well for me next year. Who knows? Fingers crossed. In terms of the podcast, again, same sort of thing. I hope it explodes. I hope next year, because this year's been really, really well for me. And I'll talk into more detail about it, because again, I always have my end of the year wrap up sort of anniversary celebrations. So I'll talk more into it there. But this year's been one of my most successful years in podcasting. The YouTube's done really well. Spotify's done really well. I've got loads of new followers on Spotify and YouTube. The episodes are doing well. I'm on TikTok now. That's doing incredible. People are listening and commenting and following and actually listening to the podcast now. So things are going well. So I hope that next year, my 5th year anniversary, it explodes. More people listen. I get more feedback. I get comments on things. I get people recommending me episodes, and things just go better. Things just take what I'm doing now and it just tenfold it. You know what I mean? It's just more eyes, more people, it explodes. Maybe even, if anybody's listening, any sponsors or any companies or people in companies listening, want to sponsor the podcast, that sort of thing would be wonderful as well. I just want it to do well. That's what I want for the podcast. So that's my sort of end of year sort of New Year's resolution going into sort of 2026. As for trivia, to sort of wrap things up as well. So to prepare for the role, Renee Zellweger gained 25 pounds, which I can't see it. But she gained 25 pounds, then worked at a British publishing company for a month using an alias and posh accent. She was apparently not recognised. She also kept a framed picture of her then boyfriend, Jim Carrey, on her desk. Her co-workers found the photo odd, but never mentioned it for fear of embarrassing her. That's very nice, to be honest. That's actually really, really lovely of that. Next one. In order to make her English accent seem more natural, Renee Zellweger retained it on set even while not shooting. Hugh Grant once noted that he did not hear her speak in an American accent until the wrap party. After this movie was completed, where he heard her speak in a very strange voice, that he soon found out was her own natural tone. Sally Phillips, a born-again Christian, received criticism from officials of her church since she portrayed a character who exhibits a harsh amount of swearing and questionable attitude. She has defended her participation by saying her job is to create love for imperfect characters. She says, "My position on that is that if you were only allowed to play perfect characters, you would only be allowed to play Jesus, and someone would have a problem with that too. I expect him, being a man and all, people aren't perfect. My job is to play a person with love, to make love for that person's possible." Which, again, I completely agree. Nobody's perfect. If you are, you would be God. You would be Jesus. As you aren't, it's okay. You know what I mean? So that's a brilliant comment from Sally. I love Sally Phillips. Like, she is hilarious. And she's brilliant in this movie. Then we have sort of the next bit. We have the snowy scenes during the end of this movie were filmed during summertime. The Bridget Jones film franchise eventually became the first movie trilogy directed exclusively by female directors, as well as the only romantic comedy trilogy of the new millennium, which I think is absolutely wonderful. I think I've got one more here, actually, but I want to share. Oh, here we are. So, yeah, I was right. So, Renee Zellweger was 32 years old when the movie was made, just like Bridget. And this movie has different end credits in different countries. In Europe, Australia, and Latin America, the credits show a montage of stills plus interviews about Bridget and Darcy with Daniel Cleaver, Mark Darcy's parents and Bridget Jones's boss. In the US, they show a young Bridget and Mark running around the backyard and paddling pool in a home video. The interviews can be found as the final deleted scene on the North American DVD, while the North American credits are found in the deleted scenes on the European DVD. I didn't know this movie had different end credits. So that's a bit of trivia for me. I've now got to go into the deleted scenes of this just to see that scene, even though it sounds a bit of a weird one. But yeah, I always, this is what I love about looking into movies, how they change things for different territories. Like, if you live in the UK, you would never know that they changed it in America, as I never did. And I'm sure most people here never knew that, so I love that. I do. Strange that they do it. And it's because they just don't feel like American audiences or audiences of that country will resonate with it. But again, the movie's ended. So why should it matter? Most people are getting up and leaving anyway. Most people aren't staying to watch the credits. Most people are running to go to the toilet or to go home for the babysitter, that sort of thing. So I don't know. Anyway, That is all I've got for trivia. That's all I've got for Bridget Jones. I don't know when I'm going to look into the second movie. I might make it an end of year thing, really. Because I'm quite busy next year. I've got a lot of topics and a lot of things I want to look into next year. So I don't know if I'm about to squeeze it in into the summer. But it's something I might do as a yearly thing. Like the last episode I do at the end of every year, look into a Bridget Jones movie. Yeah, I like the idea of that. That's what I might do, actually. So, yeah, it's set in stone. I've written it down in my book. It's forever ingrained there. So you're going to have to wait until the end of next year, sorry to say, to hear my thoughts on the second Bridget Jones's movie. But I feel like it'd be interesting because by that stage, I had lived a whole year or thereabouts. I'd lived a whole year so that I might have changed next year. Something really horrific might happen next year, or something really wonderful might happen next year. So I might be a completely different person. So it'd probably be best to do it at the end of the year to see how my year's gone, and I can comment on my year and look into Bridget, and then to see my hopes of 2027. So yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the second movie at the end of next year. So sorry for those that really enjoyed this and want to hear my thoughts on the second movie. You're going to have to wait a year, sadly. But I think it'd be a wait worth waiting for, to be honest. So yeah, that's all I've got to say now, to be honest. I've just realised, I looked at the time, it's almost an hour and 2 minutes. Bloody hell. I really love this movie. I do. And I'll be honest, I did get on a bit of on my soapbox and welcome to my TED Talk a few times, so I do apologise there. But I just had a lot to say about this film. But yeah, I really love it. I really enjoy it. And I recommend it to everybody, to be honest. If you haven't seen Bridget Jones, it's worth checking out. And even though I didn't have that great of a time with the book, I still liked the book, and I still would recommend reading the book if you haven't. But primarily, if you haven't watched Bridget Jones, read the book, then watch the movie. Because again, you might end up being in a situation like me where, you've watched the movie so many times and then you read the book and you're like, oh God, they're basically the same. So yeah, read the book first if you haven't, and then watch this movie if you haven't. And yeah, so I'm gonna go now. I can smell my mum cooking what smells like spaghetti bolognese. So that means dinner's almost done. So I'm gonna go and eat spaghetti bolognese. And I'm gonna leave you all. Thank you very much for joining me this year. Honestly, it's meant a lot for all the people that have newly followed me, all those people that have been following me from the beginning. Thank you very, very much. I absolutely love and adore you all. I hope you all enjoyed this year. I hope you enjoyed Christmas episodes. I hope you enjoyed the Halloween ones and some of the odd ones as well, like Watership Down and stuff like that. Like, I really hope you've enjoyed this year and that you stuck around. And if you have, I appreciate it. And yeah, next year, my 5-year anniversary special. All of next year is going to be a huge celebration of the podcast and episodes and things. So hope you stick around for that. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. Happy New Year. I love you all. For the final time this year, you've been listening to Luke from the Howdy Beans podcast, and I'll catch you all next year. Till then, bye-bye.